Lord of Mysteries 2, Circle-of-Inevitability. Chapter 117, Remuneration. Asta forced a smile. I'm not lying. There really is a Samaritan women's spring. Is that so? Lumion approached Asta with a grin and said, When the time comes, take a sip first. If it's useful, you'll forget that I haven't paid you. If it's useless, why should I pay you? For a moment, Asta was at a loss for words. He could only smile and nod. Trust me, trust me. Suddenly, he looked past Lumion, his eyes widening in terror. Lumion instinctively turned to look at the door, but there was no one there. Seizing the opportunity, Asta ducked and made a break for the open door. Thud! Asta tripped over Lumion's right foot, which had swiftly extended, and crashed to the ground. His nose bridge turned blue, and his gaunt face swelled. Lumion slowly closed the door, pulled up a chair, and sat down. He looked down at Asta, who was feigning death on the floor, and said, Don't tell me you have high spiritual perception and saw a bizarre creature behind me. Did you rush to the door to help me deal with it? Asta was dumbstruck for a moment before rising to his feet and nodding repeatedly. That's right, that's right. Lumion smiled and glanced at the rectangular wooden table against the wall. Silver dagger, white candles, a few small bottles filled with different liquids or empty, 2 imitation goatskins, and a paper box emitting the fragrance of plants were strewn across it. He has a certain amount of mysticism knowledge. Lumion shifted his gaze back to the uneasy Asta and asked, Who was that guy with the pipe just now? Baron Brignaise. Asta replied hastily. He's the leader of the Savoy mob in the market district. Savoy was the name of an inland province in the Intis Republic, bordering the provinces of Haute-Hornacis and Bas-Hornacis. It was rich in mineral resources and had a valiant folk culture. A baron? There are still barons? Lumion asked, amused. Ever since Emperor Rosel's death and the establishment of the Republic, aristocratic titles had vanished from daily life. Asta said fearfully, That's a nickname he gave himself. Perhaps his ancestors held such an aristocratic title. Lumion leaned back in his chair and asked casually, Why did he come to you? Do you owe them money? Seeing Lumion's harmless demeanor, as though he was chatting with a friend, Asta relaxed a little despite his fear. He said bitterly, In order to buy an item, I'd borrowed 3,000 Vril d'or from a loan shark. Later, that man sold the debt to Brignaise. I paid back at least 3,000 Vril d'or, but he told me there was still 2,000 in interest. If you drag on for another 2 or 3 months, you won't owe 2,000, but 4,000. Lumion watched Asta's expression crumble, the air of mystery gone. He then lowered his voice and said in a beguiling tone, If I were you, I'd find a way to draw Brignaise and his crew into a quarry pit. Then, I'd bring down the stone layer above, burying them for eternity. No creditors, no debts. The more Asta listened, the more panic-stricken he became. He stared at Lumion as if he were a demon. He had a suspicion that Lumion had already plotted such a scheme, but with Asta Trull as the intended target, not Brignaise. That's murder! A crime! Asta exclaimed in terror. Keep it down. You wouldn't want to lose your voice permanently, would you? Lumion warned him with a smile. So you do realize that's a crime? Did anyone ever tell you that fraud is a crime too? Asta was at a loss for words. Lumion stood up and dusted off his gloves. I'm just kidding. I was testing your character. What? Asta was baffled. Lumion wouldn't reveal that his true motive was to establish an ice-cold, ruthless persona in Asta's mind. It would come in handy during future negotiations. Forced trust was still trust. Congratulations on passing my test. This proves you're not completely without scruples. Lumion grinned and spread his arms. He quickly steered the conversation back on course. What did you borrow so much money for? He glanced around, adding, Doesn't seem like there's anything valuable here. Asta instinctively wanted to spout a lie but remembered Lumion's warning. He trembled and said, Do you know about potions? You're really a beyonder? Lumion chuckled. Seeing that Lumion knew about Beyonders and potions, Asta breathed a sigh of relief. He was glad he hadn't lied. Any fabricated story would be riddled with holes in front of a true Beyonder, easily exposed. If caught, Asta might end up, sleeping forever, in some underground trier hideout tonight. Taking 2 deep breaths, Asta continued. A few months ago, I borrowed 3,000 Vril from a loan shark to purchase the main ingredient for a potion. Combined with the 4,000 Vril I'd saved, I successfully transformed from an ordinary person into a Beyonder. Which sequence do you belong to? You can't even handle a few thugs? Lumion asked with feigned suspicion. Asta looked defeated. I'm a Sequence 9 Secrets suppliant. It doesn't sound weak. Lumion could only gauge by the potion's name. Asta lamented in frustration. I thought secret suppliants were powerful too. The seller even claimed it would allow me to see the world's truth. In the end, aside from heightened spiritual perception, all I got was some impractical sacrificial knowledge and ritual magic. I can occasionally sense the presence of mysterious entities, scaring myself witless, but I can't even defeat a thug. The ritual magic should come in handy. Lumion remarked knowingly. Asta looked close to tears. I'm well versed in mysticism. I'm a follower of the eternal blazing Sunday. How can I pray to an unknown entity? That's too risky. Sigh, there are some honorific names in the potion's knowledge, but they're all concealed entities. Just hearing them is terrifying. I wouldn't dare invoke depravity, true kin, or the gaze of fate. He glanced at Lumion and feigned determination. But I've considered it. If Baron Brignaise and his goons corner me again, I'll pray to the hidden existence and gain strength. He was ostensibly talking about Baron Brignaise, but his true intent was to caution Lumion against forcing him into a corner. Lumion studied Asta's uneasy face and agreed. That's a wise decision. Baron Brignaise and his crew underestimate a Beyonder. If I were in their shoes, I wouldn't give you the chance to reach a dead end. He then smiled at Asta. You'd be dead before that happens. Asta opened his mouth but closed it again, his expression more pained than crying. Lumion walked over to the wooden table and toyed with the empty bottles. You've moved several times, but Baron Brignaise keeps finding you. I suspect he or the Savoy mob have Beyonders on their side. Asta gasped in shock. Lumion picked up the silver dagger from the table, twirling it as he said to Asta. I can offer you 100 Vril as a reward. Huh! Asta was baffled once more. He realized he couldn't keep up with Lumion's thought process. You still want the spring water from the Samaritan women's spring? He ventured. Lumion grinned and replied. Tell me, does it really exist? Eyeing Lumion's amused gaze, Asta hesitated for a moment before admitting. I'm not sure. Lumion nodded in satisfaction. What I want is for you to take me to the gathering you mentioned, the one where you bought the potion's main ingredient. The reward is 100 Vril. Lumion made this request partly because Madame Magician's mission might be connected to the gathering involving Beyonder materials, and partly because he needed a similar event to acquire weapons, materials, sealed artifacts, and arcane knowledge. Asta swallowed hard. I can try, but I'll need the gathering organizer's approval. No problem. Lumion took out a gold coin and beckoned Asta over. This Louis d'Or is your reward for asking. I'll give you the remaining 80 Vril when I can attend the gathering. Asta hadn't anticipated that his beating would turn into a job offer. He was momentarily dumbstruck. After a few seconds, he cautiously approached the wooden table and took the 20 Vril Louis d'Or. He told Lumion, I'm not sure when I'll get an answer, but no later than next Wednesday. I spend the day near the catacombs and sleep here at night. You can find me anytime. Lumion nodded, smiling as he raised the silver dagger in his hand and plunged it into Asta's shoulder. Blood spurted out, and Asta staggered back in terror. He leaned against the wall and cried out anxiously. Don't kill me! I'm not lying! Lumion picked up a glass bottle from the wooden table and approached Asta with a smile. Don't worry. If I wanted you dead, I would have done it by now. This is called a blood oath. I'm very wary of deception and betrayal. As Lumian spoke, he held the empty glass bottle to Asta's wound, allowing the blood to trickle in. During this process, he smiled at Asta and said, "You have a strong grasp of mysticism. You should know what blood means in the hands of others. Don't lie to me." Curse. For a moment, Asta couldn't decide whether to rejoice that he hadn't been killed on the spot or despair that his blood now belonged to a man more dangerous than Baron Brignaise. Lumian said nothing more. He tightened the bottle cap, tore a strip of cloth from the room, and tossed it to Asta. "Bandage your wound yourself." He wasn't familiar with any beyonder curses, but he could test if expired blood could activate fallen Mercury's fate-exchanging ability. Even if it didn't work, all he needed to do was convince Asta that he knew how to cast curses. Lumian glanced at Asta, who was desperately trying to staunch the bleeding, and casually asked, "What's your plan for dealing with Baron Brignaise?" "With this Louis d'Or and some money I've saved, I should be able to appease them for a week," Asta said with a bitter smile. "They won't get a single couplet if they push their debtors to death."